Hey there, you. Yes, you, scrolling through YouTube, looking for something to spark a little light in your day. What if I told you that there's a secret to staying happy no matter what life throws at you? Not just the small stuff, like a bad day at work or a fight with a friend, but the big, earth-shattering moments that make you question everything. Imagine finding a way to smile through the chaos, to hold on to joy when the world feels like it's crumbling. Sounds impossible, right? Well, stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to discover the answer you came here for: how to stay happy in every situation. And it all starts with the story of a woman whose life was turned upside down, yet she found a way to shine brighter than ever. Intrigued? You should be. Let me take you on a journey that's going to change the way you see happiness forever. You're not just watching a video, you're about to uncover a truth that could transform your life. So, grab a cozy spot, maybe a cup of coffee, and let's dive into this together. Don't even think about clicking away, because I promise, you're going to want to hear this. Picture this: a small, quiet town in the heart of America, where the days roll by like a gentle breeze and everyone knows each other's name. It's the kind of place where life feels predictable, safe, almost too perfect. That's where our story begins, with a woman named Clara. Now, Clara wasn't your average person. She had this glow about her, the kind that made strangers stop and smile, the kind that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. People in town called her the wise woman, not because she was old or had all the answers, but because she had this uncanny ability to stay happy, no matter what. Lost her job? Clara would laugh it off and say, "Something better's coming." Family troubles? She'd sit you down with a warm cookie and a story that made your worries melt away. Even when the worst storms hit, literal or not, Clara was unshakable. But here's the thing: Clara wasn't born with this gift. Something happened to her, something so big, so devastating, that it could have broken anyone. And that's the mystery we're going to unravel today. What was it that turned Clara into the woman who could find joy in the darkest moments? And more importantly, how can you and I learn to do the same? I know you're curious, I can feel it through the screen. You're wondering, what's her secret? How does someone stay happy when life gets messy? Well, I'm going to let you in on a little hint. It's not about pretending everything's fine or pasting on a fake smile. It's deeper, rawer, and way more powerful than that. Keep watching, because I'm going to walk you through Clara's story, step by step, and by the end, you'll know exactly how to tap into that same unstoppable happiness. Now, let's get real for a second. You're here because you want to feel better, right? Maybe life's been throwing you curveballs, stress at work, drama in your relationships, or maybe you're just feeling stuck, like happiness is this far-off thing you can't quite grab. I get it. We've all been there. That's why I'm talking directly to you, because this video isn't just about Clara, it's about you. It's about that spark inside you that's waiting to light up, even on the toughest days. You're not alone in this, and I'm not just some voice on the internet. I'm here, sharing this story, because I believe you deserve to feel happy, truly happy, no matter what's going on. And Clara's story? It's proof that it's possible. Let me paint you a picture of who she was before everything changed. Clara grew up in that small town, raised by parents who worked hard but struggled to make ends meet. She wasn't handed anything on a silver platter. As a kid, she was shy, sensitive, the kind of person who felt everything deeply. If something went wrong, it hit her hard. Sound familiar? Maybe you're someone who feels things intensely too, and that's okay, it's what makes you human. But Clara's life wasn't all struggles. She had dreams, big ones. She wanted to travel the world, write a book, maybe even start a family someday. And for a while, it looked like she was on her way. She got a job she loved, fell in love with a guy who made her laugh, and started building a life that felt like it was hers. But then, out of nowhere, something happened that flipped her world upside down. I'm not going to spoil it yet, you'll have to keep watching to find out what it was, but let's just say it was the kind of moment that makes you question whether happiness is even possible anymore. Here's where things get interesting. You might think Clara's story is about hitting rock bottom and bouncing back, but it's so much more than that. It's about what she discovered in the middle of the storm, the kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books or motivational quotes, but from living through the hardest days and coming out stronger. That's what makes her story so special, and it's why I'm so excited to share it with you. You see, happiness isn't just about the good times, it's about finding light in the dark, about holding on to hope when everything feels hopeless. And Clara, she mastered that. But don't worry, this isn't one of those fluffy, feel-good stories that leaves you with more questions than answers. I'm going to break it down for you, piece by piece, so you can take what Clara learned and apply it to your own life. Whether you're dealing with a breakup, a career setback, or just the weight of the world, you're going to walk away from this video with tools you can use right now. And I'm not just saying that to keep you hooked though. Let's be honest, you're already hooked, aren't you? You're wondering what happened to Clara, what changed her, and how she became the wise woman everyone looked up to. I can see you leaning in, wanting to know more, and I love that. That's the kind of energy we need for this journey. So, let's keep going, because the deeper we dive into Clara's story, the closer we get to the secret that's going to change everything for you. Now, let's talk about why this matters. In a world that's constantly throwing challenges our way, bills piling up, social media making us feel like we're not enough, or just the daily grind wearing us down, it's easy to feel like happiness is out of reach. But what if it's not? What if happiness is something you can choose, something you can build, no matter what's going on around you? That's what Clara's story is all about, and it's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with you. You're not just watching this video for entertainment, you're here because you want to grow, to learn, to find a way to make life feel a little brighter. And I'm here to help you do that. Clara's story isn't just a tale of one woman's resilience, it's a roadmap for all of us. It's about the themes that connect us: hope, strength, and the courage to keep going even when it feels impossible. But I'm not going to give it all away just yet. We're only scratching the surface, and there's so much more to uncover. Like, what was the moment that changed Clara forever? What did she lose, and what did she gain? And how did she turn her pain into something so beautiful that it inspired everyone around her? These are the questions that are going to keep you glued to this video, because the answers are worth it. I'm talking to you, yes, you, because I know you're ready to hear this. You're ready to discover how to stay happy, not just sometimes, but in every situation. Okay, let's set the stage a little more. Clara's town wasn't just a backdrop, it was practically a character in her story. It was the kind of place where people rallied together, where neighbors became family. But it was also a place where secrets lingered, where everyone knew just enough about each other to keep things interesting. Clara was at the heart of it all, not because she was loud or flashy, but because she had this way of making people feel seen. Before everything changed, she was the person you'd go to for advice, a laugh, or just a moment of calm in a hectic world. But when her life took that unexpected turn, something shifted, not just in her, but in the whole town. People started to notice that Clara wasn't just surviving, she was thriving in a way they couldn't understand. And that's where the mystery deepens. What was it that gave her that unshakable joy? Was it something she found within herself, or was it something or someone else? I know you're dying to know, and I'm going to tell you, but not just yet. You've got to stick with me, because this story is like a puzzle, and every piece we uncover brings us closer to the big picture. By the time we're done, you're going to have the tools to create your own happiness, no matter what life throws at you. And trust me, it's going to feel so good. Here's the deal, I'm not just telling you a story to pass the time. I'm sharing this because I believe in you. I believe that you have the power to find joy, to rise above the challenges, and to live a life that feels full and meaningful. Clara's story is proof of that, and it's why I'm so excited to be your guide on this journey. But we're not rushing to the end just yet. We're building up to something big, something that's going to make you see happiness in a whole new way. And right now, we're at a turning point. Clara's life was about to change forever, and the moment that sparked it all is just around the corner. What was it that shook her to her core? What did she discover that made her the wise woman everyone admired? And how can you use that same wisdom to transform your own life? These are the questions that are going to keep you watching, because the answers are coming, and they're going to blow your mind. So, don't you dare click away now, we're just getting to the good part. Stay with me, because the next piece of Clara's story is going to leave you hanging on the edge of your seat, wondering what happens next. Right where we left off, you're probably sitting there, heart racing, wondering what could have turned Clara's world upside down and how she emerged as this beacon of unshakable happiness. I can feel your curiosity buzzing through the screen, and I'm not going to leave you hanging, but I'm also not going to spill all the secrets just yet. You're in this with me, and we're peeling back the layers of Clara's story together, step by step, like unraveling a mystery that's as personal to you as it is to her. Let's dive deeper into the months leading up to that life-altering moment, into the world Clara lived in, the people she loved, and the whispers in her small town that hinted at something brewing beneath the surface. This is where things get juicy, where the puzzle pieces start to scatter, and you'll find yourself second-guessing what you think you know. Clara's life wasn't as simple as it seemed, and the more we explore, the more you'll see why her story is the key to unlocking how to stay happy in every situation. So, lean in, because the tension's building, and every detail I'm about to share is going to pull you deeper into this journey. Clara's life, in the year before everything changed, was what most people would call charmed, but not without its cracks. She was in her early 30s, working as a librarian in the town's cozy little library, a place where the smell of old books mingled with the chatter of kids and retirees swapping stories. It wasn't a glamorous job, but Clara loved it, organizing shelves, recommending novels, and hosting book clubs where she'd light up the room with her warmth. People didn't just come to the library for books, they came for her. She had this way of making you feel like you mattered, like your story was worth telling. But outside the library, Clara's world was a little more complicated. She'd been dating Tom, a local carpenter with a boyish grin and a reputation for being a bit of a dreamer. They'd been together for 3 years, and everyone in town thought they were headed for marriage. Tom was the kind of guy who'd show up with wildflowers he picked himself, but there were whispers, nothing concrete, just murmurs, that he wasn't as reliable as he seemed. Some said he'd been spending too much time at the local bar, talking to a mysterious woman no one could quite place. Clara, though, seemed unbothered, at least on the surface. She'd laugh off the gossip, saying, "Tom's just Tom," but you have to wonder, was she really that carefree, or was she hiding something? That's the thing about Clara, her happiness was so radiant, it was hard to tell if it was a shield or the real deal. And as you're listening to this, I bet you're starting to wonder too. Was Tom's behavior a clue to what was coming, or is this just a distraction from the real mystery? Then there was Clara's best friend, Maggie, who added another layer to this unfolding story. Maggie was the opposite of Clara, fiery, outspoken, and always stirring the pot. She ran the town's only coffee shop, a hub where secrets were spilled over steaming lattes. Maggie and Clara were inseparable, the kind of friends who'd finish each other's sentences and share everything. But lately, people noticed a shift. Maggie seemed distant, maybe even a little jealous of Clara's effortless charm. There was that one incident at the coffee shop, about a month before everything went down, where Maggie snapped at Clara in front of customers, something about Clara always getting what she wants. It was out of character, and it left everyone whispering. Was Maggie just stressed, or was there something deeper, something that could explain why Clara's life was about to unravel? You're probably starting to see the threads here, aren't you? The perfect boyfriend who might not be so perfect, the best friend who's acting strange, each one a piece of the puzzle, but none of them quite fitting yet. That's what makes this story so gripping. The more you learn, the less you're sure of. And I know you're hooked, because you're already trying to guess what happened to Clara, what pushed her to the edge and made her the wise woman we're all dying to understand. Let's not forget the town itself, because it's more than just a setting, it's a living, breathing part of this mystery. This wasn't some big city where people come and go. It was a tight-knit community where every event, every rumor, rippled through the streets. In the months leading up to Clara's turning point, the town was buzzing with its own dramas. There was the old mill that shut down, leaving dozens jobless, including Clara's brother, Daniel. He'd always been a bit of a loner, but after losing his job, he started acting stranger, showing up at Clara's house late at night, talking about starting over somewhere new. Clara brushed it off as Daniel being Daniel, but there was a tension there, a sense that he was holding something back. Then there was the arrival of a newcomer, a woman named Elise, who moved into a rundown house on the edge of town. Elise kept to herself, but her presence stirred curiosity. Some said she was a writer researching a book, others swore she was running from something or someone. Clara, ever the welcoming soul, tried to befriend her, but Elise was guarded, almost cold. Why was Elise so distant? And why did Clara seem so determined to break through to her? These are the kinds of questions that make you lean closer to the screen, because they hint at something bigger, something that might explain the storm that was about to hit Clara's life. You're feeling it, right? That itch to know more, to figure out who or what is at the heart of this. As these pieces come together, you're probably starting to sense the weight of what was building around Clara. Her life looked perfect from the outside: steady job, loving boyfriend, loyal friend, supportive community, but there were cracks, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. The rumors about Tom, Maggie's outburst, Daniel's odd behavior, Elise's mysterious arrival, they all swirled around Clara like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. And Clara herself. She was still the same warm, joyful woman, but there were moments, fleeting ones, where you could see something else in her eyes. A flicker of worry, maybe, or a shadow of doubt. Nobody could pin it down, but it was there. Was she sensing that something was coming? Did she know her world was about to change? That's what keeps you glued to this story, because you're not just watching Clara's life unfold, you're living it with her, feeling the tension, the uncertainty, the need to know what happens next. And I'm right here with you, guiding you through it, because this isn't just about Clara's happiness, it's about yours. You came here searching for answers, for a way to stay happy no matter what, and I promise, we're getting closer to that truth. But we're not there yet, and the road is about to get even twistier. Here's where the suspense really kicks in. About a week before the event that changed everything, Clara started acting different. Not in a big, obvious way, but in small, unsettling ways that only those closest to her noticed. She'd forget things, like showing up late for her book club or leaving her phone at the library. She'd laugh it off, but there was a strain in her voice, like she was trying to convince herself everything was fine. Then there was the night she was seen walking alone by the river, long after midnight, staring into the water like she was searching for something. A neighbor mentioned it to Maggie, who shrugged it off, but you could tell it bothered her. Why was Clara out there? Was she meeting someone, or was she wrestling with something inside herself? And then there was the strange package that arrived at the library, addressed to Clara, with no return address. She didn't open it in front of anyone, just tucked it under her arm and said it was nothing important. But the way she held it, the way her smile faltered for just a second, people noticed. You're probably starting to feel the same unease they did, aren't you? The sense that something was off, that Clara was standing on the edge of something huge, and nobody, not even her, knew how to stop it. That's the beauty of this story. It pulls you in, makes you question everything, and keeps you desperate for answers. So, here we are, teetering on the brink of the moment that changed Clara forever. The town was buzzing with its usual gossip, but now it was tinged with something darker, something that made people glance over their shoulders. Tom was still charming everyone, but those bar rumors weren't going away. Maggie was pouring coffee and cracking jokes, but her eyes kept darting to Clara like she was waiting for something to break. Daniel was pulling away, talking about leaving town for good. And Elise? She was still a question mark, a shadow at the edge of Clara's life. All of these people, all of these moments, were circling around Clara, and she was at the center, still smiling, still glowing, but carrying a weight nobody could see. What was in that package? Why was she by the river? And what was it that finally pushed her life into chaos, only to lead her to a happiness so profound it became legendary? You're dying to know, I can tell. Your mind's racing, piecing together the clues, wondering who's to blame or if there's anyone to blame at all. Don't click away now, because we're about to step into the heart of the storm, and what happens next is going to leave you speechless. Stay with me, because the truth about Clara's transformation is just around the corner, and it's going to change the way you see everything. You're still here, aren't you? I knew you would be, because Clara's story has you hooked, and we're diving even deeper now, right into the thick of the mystery that's got us all on edge. You're probably replaying those last moments in your head, Clara by the river, that strange package, the whispers about Tom, Maggie, Daniel, and the enigmatic Elise. You're itching to know what happened to flip Clara's world upside down and lead her to that unshakable happiness we're all chasing. Well, buckle up, because things are about to get even more intense. As we pick up where we left off, Clara's standing on the brink of something massive, but the path to the truth is getting murkier, with obstacles popping up like shadows in a storm. I'm talking to you directly, because this isn't just Clara's journey, it's ours, and every twist is going to pull you deeper into the question of how to stay happy in every situation. The tension's climbing, and I can feel you leaning in, desperate for answers. Let's keep going, but don't expect things to clear up just yet. The fog's only getting thicker, and what's waiting around the corner is going to leave you reeling. In the days following that odd night by the river, Clara's life started to feel like a puzzle with missing pieces. She was still the warm, glowing librarian everyone adored, but there was a new edge to her, a quiet determination that hadn't been there before. She started asking questions, subtle ones, but enough to raise eyebrows. She'd linger at Maggie's coffee shop, casually bringing up Tom's late nights or Daniel's plans to leave town. She even tried talking to Elise, knocking on her door with a plate of homemade cookies, only to be met with a polite but firm brush-off. Clara wasn't pushy, but you could tell she was searching for something, piecing together a truth nobody else could see. And that mysterious package? It became the talk of the town, especially after it vanished. Clara had left it on her desk at the library, intending to open it later, but when she came back the next morning, it was gone. No sign of a break-in, no clues, just an empty spot where it had been. The library staff swore they hadn't touched it, and when Clara asked around, people started acting strange, avoiding her eyes, changing the subject. You're probably feeling the same chill they did, aren't you? The kind that makes you wonder who took it and why. Was it Tom, covering his tracks? Maggie, hiding a grudge? Or someone else entirely, someone who didn't want Clara digging into whatever was inside that package? The disappearance wasn't just a setback, it was a warning, a signal that the truth Clara was chasing wasn't going to come easy. Then came the encounter that turned everything upside down. It was late one evening, just as Clara was locking up the library, when she ran into Old Man Harper, the town's unofficial historian who knew every secret buried in the county records. Harper was a quiet sort, always scribbling in his notebook, but that night, he looked rattled. He pulled Clara aside, his voice low, and told her to stop asking questions. He wouldn't say why, just kept muttering about things best left alone and debts that don't need repaying. Clara tried to laugh it off, but Harper's eyes were dead serious, and before he shuffled off into the dark, he dropped a bombshell. You don't know what happened 10 years ago, Clara, but it's not done with you. 10 years ago? That was the first anyone had heard of a secret from Clara's past, and it hit like a thunderclap. Clara was barely in her 20s back then, still living with her parents, dreaming of a bigger life. What could have happened a decade ago that was coming back to haunt her now? You're probably racking your brain, just like I was, trying to figure out what Harper meant. Was it a mistake Clara made? A betrayal she didn't see coming? Or something darker, something tied to the people she trusted most? Harper's warning didn't just scare Clara, it scared the whole town, because if the wise woman was rattled, what did that mean for everyone else? And you're feeling it too, right? That gnawing need to know what's lurking in Clara's past and how it's tied to the chaos unfolding now. As if that wasn't enough, a new figure stepped into the picture, adding another layer of doubt to Clara's search. His name was Ethan, a charming drifter who rolled into town a few days after the package disappeared. Ethan claimed he was just passing through, taking odd jobs to fund his travels, but there was something about him that didn't add up. He was too smooth, too quick to win people over with his easy smile and stories of far-off places. Clara met him at the coffee shop, where he'd taken to helping Maggie during the morning rush. The two hit it off, and soon Ethan was tagging along to Clara's book club, offering insights that seemed a little too sharp for a guy who claimed to be just a wanderer. But here's where it gets weird. Ethan knew things. He'd drop vague comments about Clara's family, her childhood, even that mysterious decade-old event Harper had hinted at. When Clara pressed him, he'd play it off, saying he'd heard things in his travels, but you could see the wheels turning in her head. Was Ethan an ally, someone who could help her uncover the truth? Or was he a wolf in sheep's clothing, steering her toward danger? You're probably starting to suspect him, aren't you? I don't blame you. There's something about a charming stranger that sets off alarm bells, especially when Clara's already surrounded by so many question marks. Tom's late nights, Maggie's coldness, Daniel's secrecy, Elise's distance, and now Ethan's convenient arrival. It's enough to make you wonder who Clara can trust, if anyone. The deeper Clara dug, the more obstacles piled up, each one making the truth feel further out of reach. The town, once her safe haven, started to feel like a maze of half-truths and hidden motives. People she'd known her whole life were acting cagey, dodging her questions or giving answers that didn't add up. Even the library, her sanctuary, felt different. Books she'd shelved were moved, notes she'd written went missing, and once, she found a single page torn from an old newspaper, left on her desk like a taunt. It was an article from 10 years ago, too faded to read clearly, but the word betrayal stood out in bold. Clara didn't tell anyone about it, but you could see the weight it added to her shoulders. She was still smiling, still holding book clubs and baking cookies for neighbors, but there was a fire in her now, a need to know what was being kept from her. And that's what makes this story so gripping, isn't it? You're not just watching Clara fight for answers, you're fighting with her, feeling every frustration, every flicker of doubt. You're wondering if that missing package held the key to everything, or if Harper's warning was a clue to a deeper betrayal. And Ethan, friend or foe? You're desperate to know, just like I am, because every step Clara takes pulls us closer to the moment that changed her, the moment that turned her into the wise woman who could find happiness no matter what. But we're not there yet, and the road's about to take a sharp turn. Here's where things get really wild. Just when Clara thought she was getting close to the truth, something happened that stopped her dead in her tracks. It was a Friday night, the kind of crisp evening where the whole town gathered for the weekly bonfire at the community park. Clara was there, chatting with neighbors, but her eyes kept darting to Ethan, who was laughing with Maggie a little too closely. Tom was nowhere to be seen, and Daniel had skipped the event entirely, which wasn't like him. As the fire crackled and the crowd thinned, Clara slipped away to clear her head, walking toward the edge of the park where the trees cast long shadows. That's when she saw it, a figure standing in the dark, watching her. Not moving, not speaking, just watching. Clara froze, her heart pounding, and before she could call out, the figure turned and vanished into the woods. She didn't tell anyone, she was too shaken, but the next morning, she found something on her doorstep, a single photograph, old and creased, showing her and someone else from 10 years ago, someone whose face was scratched out. Who was in that photo? Why was it left for her? And who was watching her that night? You're feeling the same chill Clara did, aren't you? The kind that makes your skin prickle and your mind race. Don't even think about clicking away now, because this twist is just the beginning, and what's coming next is going to turn Clara's world and yours upside down. You're still with me, right? I can feel your pulse racing from here, your mind spinning with that creepy image of Clara finding that old photograph on her doorstep, the face scratched out, and the shadowy figure watching her from the woods. You're probably asking yourself the same questions she was. Who was in that photo? Who left it there? And what does it have to do with the secret from 10 years ago that old man Harper warned her about? We're neck deep in Clara's mystery now, and just when you thought things couldn't get any wilder, a new thread is about to weave itself into this tangled web, making the truth even harder to grasp. I'm talking to you, the one glued to this story, because you didn't come here just to watch a video, you came to uncover the secret to staying happy in every situation, and Clara's journey is the key. Clara had left it on her desk at the library, intending to open it later, but when she came back the next morning, it was gone. No sign of a break-in, no clues, just an empty spot where it had been. The library staff swore they hadn't touched it, and when Clara asked around, people started acting strange, avoiding her eyes, changing the subject. You're probably feeling the same chill they did, aren't you? The kind that makes you wonder who took it and why. Was it Tom, covering his tracks? Maggie, hiding a grudge? Or someone else entirely, someone who didn't want Clara digging into whatever was inside that package? The disappearance wasn't just a setback, it was a warning, a signal that the truth Clara was chasing wasn't going to come easy. Then came the encounter that turned everything upside down. It was late one evening, just as Clara was locking up the library, when she ran into Old Man Harper, the town's unofficial historian who knew every secret buried in the county records. Harper was a quiet sort, always scribbling in his notebook, but that night, he looked rattled. He pulled Clara aside, his voice low, and told her to stop asking questions. He wouldn't say why, just kept muttering about things best left alone and debts that don't need repaying. Clara tried to laugh it off, but Harper's eyes were dead serious, and before he shuffled off into the dark, he dropped a bombshell. You don't know what happened 10 years ago, Clara, but it's not done with you. 10 years ago? That was the first anyone had heard of a secret from Clara's past, and it hit like a thunderclap. Clara was barely in her 20s back then, still living with her parents, dreaming of a bigger life. What could have happened a decade ago that was coming back to haunt her now? You're probably racking your brain, just like I was, trying to figure out what Harper meant. Was it a mistake Clara made? A betrayal she didn't see coming? Or something darker, something tied to the people she trusted most? Harper's warning didn't just scare Clara, it scared the whole town, because if the wise woman was rattled, what did that mean for everyone else? And you're feeling it too, right? That gnawing need to know what's lurking in Clara's past and how it's tied to the chaos unfolding now. As if that wasn't enough, a new figure stepped into the picture, adding another layer of doubt to Clara's search. His name was Ethan, a charming drifter who rolled into town a few days after the package disappeared. Ethan claimed he was just passing through, taking odd jobs to fund his travels, but there was something about him that didn't add up. He was too smooth, too quick to win people over with his easy smile and stories of far-off places. Clara met him at the coffee shop, where he'd taken to helping Maggie during the morning rush. The two hit it off, and soon Ethan was tagging along to Clara's book club, offering insights that seemed a little too sharp for a guy who claimed to be just a wanderer. But here's where it gets weird. Ethan knew things. He'd drop vague comments about Clara's family, her childhood, even that mysterious decade-old event Harper had hinted at. When Clara pressed him, he'd play it off, saying he'd heard things in his travels, but you could see the wheels turning in her head. Was Ethan an ally, someone who could help her uncover the truth? Or was he a wolf in sheep's clothing, steering her toward danger? You're probably starting to suspect him, aren't you? I don't blame you. There's something about a charming stranger that sets off alarm bells, especially when Clara's already surrounded by so many question marks. Tom's late nights, Maggie's coldness, Daniel's secrecy, Elise's distance, and now Ethan's convenient arrival. It's enough to make you wonder who Clara can trust, if anyone. The deeper Clara dug, the more obstacles piled up, each one making the truth feel further out of reach. The town, once her safe haven, started to feel like a maze of half-truths and hidden motives. People she'd known her whole life were acting cagey, dodging her questions or giving answers that didn't add up. Even the library, her sanctuary, felt different. Books she'd shelved were moved, notes she'd written went missing, and once, she found a single page torn from an old newspaper, left on her desk like a taunt. It was an article from 10 years ago, too faded to read clearly, but the word betrayal stood out in bold. Clara didn't tell anyone about it, but you could see the weight it added to her shoulders. She was still smiling, still holding book clubs and baking cookies for neighbors, but there was a fire in her now, a need to know what was being kept from her. And that's what makes this story so gripping, isn't it? You're not just watching Clara fight for answers, you're fighting with her, feeling every frustration, every flicker of doubt. You're wondering if that missing package held the key to everything, or if Harper's warning was a clue to a deeper betrayal. And Ethan, friend or foe? You're desperate to know, just like I am, because every step Clara takes pulls us closer to the moment that changed her, the moment that turned her into the wise woman who could find happiness no matter what. But we're not there yet, and the road's about to take a sharp turn. Here's where things get really wild. Just when Clara thought she was getting close to the truth, something happened that stopped her dead in her tracks. It was a Friday night, the kind of crisp evening where the whole town gathered for the weekly bonfire at the community park. Clara was there, chatting with neighbors, but her eyes kept darting to Ethan, who was laughing with Maggie a little too closely. Tom was nowhere to be seen, and Daniel had skipped the event entirely, which wasn't like him. As the fire crackled and the crowd thinned, Clara slipped away to clear her head, walking toward the edge of the park where the trees cast long shadows. That's when she saw it. A figure standing in the dark, watching her. Not moving, not speaking, just watching. Clara froze, her heart pounding, and before she could call out, the figure turned and vanished into the woods. She didn't tell anyone, she was too shaken, but the next morning, she found something on her doorstep, a single photograph, old and creased, showing her and someone else from 10 years ago, someone whose face was scratched out. Who was in that photo? Why was it left for her? And who was watching her that night? You're feeling the same chill Clara did, aren't you? The kind that makes your skin prickle and your mind race. Don't even think about clicking away now, because this twist is just the beginning, and what's coming next is going to turn Clara's world and yours upside down. You're still with me, right? I can feel your pulse racing from here, your mind spinning with that creepy image of Clara finding that old photograph on her doorstep, the face scratched out, and the shadowy figure watching her from the woods. You're probably asking yourself the same questions she was. Who was in that photo? Who left it there? And what does it have to do with the secret from 10 years ago that old man Harper warned her about? We're neck deep in Clara's mystery now, and just when you thought things couldn't get any wilder, a new thread is about to weave itself into this tangled web, making the truth even harder to grasp. I'm talking to you, the one glued to this story, because you didn't come here just to watch a video, you came to uncover the secret to staying happy in every situation, and Clara's journey is the key. But the stakes are climbing, and the shadows around her are growing darker. A secondary storyline is about to explode onto the scene, complicating everything and making you question every motive, every smile, every word. Don't even think about looking away, because this next part is going to twist the knife deeper, leaving you desperate for answers and hooked on every word. The morning after Clara found that unsettling photograph, the town was buzzing with its usual rhythm, kids biking to school, farmers hauling produce to the market, and Maggie's coffee shop packed with the breakfast crowd. But Clara was different. She moved through her day at the library with a quiet intensity, her eyes scanning every face as if searching for the one who'd left that cryptic clue. She hadn't told anyone about the photo, not even Maggie, who'd been her confidant since they were kids. Maybe it was Harper's warning ringing in her ears, or maybe it was the way Ethan's knowing glances made her skin crawl, but Clara was starting to trust no one. And then, just as she was shelving books in the quiet of the afternoon, something else happened that turned the mystery on its head. Maggie burst into the library, her face pale, clutching a crumpled envelope in her hand. She pulled Clara into the back room, away from prying eyes, and spilled a story that sent a shiver down Clara's spine, and mine, too, as I'm telling you this. Maggie had found the envelope slipped under the coffee shop's door that morning. No name, no address, just a single sheet of paper inside with a handwritten note. You can't hide what happened 10 years ago. Stop her, or you'll both pay. The words were scrawled in jagged ink, and Maggie's hands shook as she showed it to Clara. You're feeling that same jolt, aren't you? The realization that whatever Clara's chasing isn't just about her, it's pulling in the people closest to her, and now Maggie's caught in the crosshairs. But here's the kicker, Maggie wouldn't say what 10 years ago meant to her, only that it wasn't her fault. What was she hiding? And why was someone threatening her to stop Clara? This new development was like a match thrown into dry grass, igniting a secondary storyline that made the whole town feel like a house of cards ready to collapse. Maggie's note wasn't just a threat, it was proof that Clara's search for the truth was stirring up something dangerous, something that reached beyond her own life. The fact that the note mentioned 10 years ago tied it directly to Harper's cryptic warning and that scratched-out photograph, but it also raised new questions. Was Maggie involved in whatever happened back then? Had she betrayed Clara in some way, or was she a victim too? You're probably starting to suspect everyone now, just like I did when I first pieced this together. Maggie had always been Clara's rock, but her sudden secrecy, her refusal to explain the note, made her look less like a friend and more like someone with something to lose. And then there was the timing. Why did the note show up right after Clara found that photo? Was it a coincidence, or was someone orchestrating this, pulling strings to keep Clara and Maggie apart? The town, once a cozy haven, was starting to feel like a chessboard, with Clara and Maggie as pawns in a game they didn't understand. You're hooked, aren't you? Because this isn't just about Clara's happiness anymore, it's about survival, about uncovering a truth that someone, somewhere, is desperate to keep buried. As if Maggie's note wasn't enough to shake things up, another piece of evidence surfaced that contradicted everything Clara thought she knew. She'd been quietly investigating the photograph, trying to figure out who the scratched-out figure might be. She'd even dug through old yearbooks and photo albums at the library, hoping to jog her memory about that mysterious decade-old event. One night, working late, she found an old newspaper clipping tucked inside a book that hadn't been checked out in years. The clipping was from 10 years ago, reporting a car accident on the outskirts of town. 2 people were involved, a young woman who survived and a man who didn't. The woman's name wasn't listed, but the man was someone Clara knew or thought she did. His name was Jacob, a friend from her high school days who'd left town abruptly after graduation. Clara hadn't thought about him in years, but seeing his name in print hit her like a punch. She remembered Jacob as kind, quiet, someone she'd trusted. Could he be the scratched-out figure in the photo? And if so, why was his face hidden? The article said the accident was ruled a tragedy, but there were hints of something more, unanswered questions about the woman's role, whispers of foul play. Clara's mind raced, and yours is probably racing too. Was she the woman in the accident? Was Maggie? Or was it someone else, like Elise, whose arrival in town seemed too perfectly timed? This clipping didn't just deepen the mystery, it flipped it, making Clara question her own memories and everyone around her. The stakes were higher now, and Clara could feel it. The photograph, Maggie's note, the newspaper clipping, they were all connected, but the how and why were maddeningly out of reach. She started noticing things she hadn't before: Tom's excuses for missing the bonfire, Daniel's late-night phone calls he wouldn't explain, Ethan's habit of showing up exactly when she was alone. Even Elise, who'd kept her distance, was seen lingering near the library one evening, watching from across the street. Clara's search for the truth was like walking through a minefield, every step risking an explosion. And the town wasn't helping. Gossip was spreading like wildfire. Some said Clara was stirring up trouble, others thought she was losing her grip. But Clara wasn't backing down. She was still the wise woman, still smiling through the chaos, but there was a fire in her now, a need to know what happened 10 years ago and how it tied to the threats closing in. You're feeling that fire too, aren't you? That burning need to unravel this with her, to figure out who's behind the notes, the photo, the warnings. You're questioning everyone's motives now: Tom's charm, Maggie's fear, Ethan's smoothness, Daniel's secrecy, Elise's silence. And that's what makes this story so gripping. It's not just Clara's fight, it's yours, because her journey to happiness is showing you how to find your own, even when the world feels like it's conspiring against you. But just when Clara thought she was getting closer to the truth, another twist hit her out of nowhere. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind where the town felt still, almost peaceful. Clara was at home, sipping coffee and staring at the photograph, when there was a knock at her door. She opened it to find Daniel, her brother, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were wild, his hands fidgeting, and before Clara could say anything, he thrust a small, worn journal into her hands. "You need to read this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But don't tell anyone I gave it to you." Clara tried to ask what it was, but Daniel was already backing away, muttering about fixing things before he disappeared down the street. She opened the journal, her heart pounding, and found pages filled with Jacob's handwriting, notes, sketches, and cryptic entries dated 10 years ago, just before the accident. One line stood out, written in bold: "She lied to me, and now we're all paying for it." Who was she? Was it Clara, Maggie, or someone else entirely? And why did Daniel have this journal now, after all these years? You're feeling the same shock Clara did, aren't you? The kind that makes your stomach drop and your mind reel. This journal was a bombshell, but it didn't answer anything, it only raised more questions, leaving Clara, and you, teetering on the edge of a truth that's still just out of reach. Don't you dare click away now, because what's in that journal is about to change everything, and you're not going to believe what Clara finds next. Alright, you're still right here with me, and I can practically hear your heart pounding as we dive deeper into Clara's story, that journal from Jacob clutched in her hands, its cryptic words: "She lied to me, and now we're all paying for it," burning into her mind. You're probably just as shaken as she was, wondering who she is, why Daniel was so spooked, and how this all ties to the photograph, Maggie's threatening note, and the secret from 10 years ago. We're in the thick of it now, and I'm talking directly to you, because this isn't just Clara's fight, it's ours, and the path to uncovering how to stay happy in every situation is getting darker, more dangerous. The stakes have never been higher, and what's about to happen next is going to make you feel the weight of this mystery like a stone in your chest. Clara's world is about to take a chilling turn, forcing her to realize she's not just chasing answers, she's running for her life. The paranoia is creeping in, the shadows are closing, and every step she takes pulls us deeper into a story that's as gripping as it is unsettling. Don't even think about clicking away, because this is where the tension skyrockets, and you're going to be on the edge of your seat, desperate to know what happens next. Clara sat at her kitchen table that Sunday afternoon, the journal open in front of her, its pages yellowed and heavy with secrets. She couldn't shake the image of Daniel's haunted expression, the way he'd practically shoved the journal at her before vanishing into the morning mist. Her mind was a storm of questions. Why did Daniel have Jacob's journal? What did he mean by fixing things? And who was the she Jacob wrote about with such venom? Clara's fingers trembled as she turned the pages, each one filled with Jacob's meticulous notes, sketches of the town, fragments of poetry, and cryptic phrases that hinted at a betrayal so deep it had fractured his life. One entry, dated just days before the accident 10 years ago, mentioned a meeting by the river, a place Clara knew all too well. "She promised me the truth, but all I got was lies," Jacob had written. Clara's breath caught as she read it, her thoughts flashing to that night she'd been seen by the river, staring into the water like it held answers. Was that spot more than a coincidence? Her heart raced, but it wasn't just the journal that had her on edge. Ever since finding that scratched-out photograph, she'd felt eyes on her, subtle, fleeting, but unmistakable. At the library, she'd catch a shadow moving past the window, too quick to identify. Walking home, she'd hear footsteps behind her, only to turn and find no one there. You're feeling that same unease, aren't you? The kind that makes your skin prickle, knowing Clara's not just unraveling a mystery, she's being hunted by it. The weight of it all was starting to crack Clara's usual composure. She'd always been the wise woman, the one who could smile through anything, but now, alone in her quiet house, she felt the walls closing in. Her thoughts spiraled into paranoia. Could it be Tom, whose late nights and vague excuses were piling up like evidence against him? Or Maggie, whose fear over that threatening note seemed to hide something deeper, maybe guilt? Ethan's charm was starting to feel like a mask, his knowledge of her past too precise for a drifter. And Daniel, her own brother, why had he kept this journal hidden for so long? Even Elise, the elusive newcomer, seemed to linger in Clara's mind, her cold distance feeling more like a calculated move than shyness. Clara's happiness, the glow that had defined her, was still there, but it was flickering, strained by the fear that whoever was behind the photograph, the note, and now the journal wasn't just playing games, they were dangerous. She tried to push the fear down, to hold on to the strength that had carried her through tough times, but the truth was undeniable, she was in over her head. You're right there with her, aren't you? Feeling that knot in your stomach, wondering how someone so warm, so resilient, could keep going when every clue seemed to lead to more danger. That's what makes this story so human, so real. It's not just about the mystery, it's about Clara's heart, her courage, and the battle to hold on to hope when everything's screaming at her to run. Then, just as Clara was grappling with the journal's revelations, the situation took a drastic, terrifying turn. It was late that evening, the town cloaked in a heavy fog that muffled sound and blurred the streetlights. Clara had decided to visit Maggie, hoping to confront her about the note and see if she knew anything about Jacob's journal. She bundled up against the chill and headed out, the journal tucked safely in her bag. But as she walked the familiar streets, that feeling of being watched returned, stronger than ever. Her footsteps echoed, and then, she was sure of it, she heard another set, matching her pace. She quickened her step, her breath visible in the cold air, but the footsteps kept up, closer now. Her heart pounded as she glanced over her shoulder, catching a glimpse of a figure in the fog, tall, hooded, too far to make out details. Panic surged, and she broke into a run, ducking down a side street toward Maggie's coffee shop. When she reached the shop, it was dark, closed for the night, but Maggie's apartment was above it. Clara pounded on the door, calling Maggie's name, but there was no answer. Desperate, she tried the door, it was unlocked. She stepped inside, her voice trembling as she called out again, but the apartment was eerily silent. That's when she saw it, Maggie's phone, lying on the floor, its screen cracked. Next to it was a single sheet of paper, identical to the note Maggie had shown her, but this one was addressed to Clara. You're too close. Stop now, or you're next. You're feeling the same terror Clara did, aren't you? The realization that Maggie was gone, and whoever was behind this wasn't just watching, they were ready to strike. Clara's mind reeled as she stood in Maggie's empty apartment, the threatening note in her hand, the weight of Maggie's disappearance crushing her best friend, the one person she'd always leaned on, was missing, and the note made it clear, this was because of Clara's search for the truth. Guilt mixed with fear, clawing at her insides. Had she pushed too hard, asked too many questions? Was Maggie hurt because of her? The journal, the photograph, the newspaper clipping about Jacob's accident, they were all pieces of a puzzle, but now they felt like a trap, luring her closer to a danger she couldn't see. Her thoughts raced back to that figure in the fog, the footsteps that had chased her through the night. Was it the same person who'd watched her at the bonfire? The one who'd left the photograph? And where was Maggie? Clara's paranoia surged, painting everyone in her life with suspicion. Tom, who'd been distant and evasive, Ethan, whose timely arrival felt less like chance and more like a plan. Clara's heart ached for the days when her town felt like a family, when happiness came easily. Now, every smile hid a potential lie, every friend a possible enemy. You're right there with her, feeling the walls close in, the urgency of finding Maggie, the dread of what might come next. Daniel, who dropped the journal and vanished, even Elise, whose shadowy presence seemed to haunt every corner of this mystery. This isn't just a story, it's a pulse-pounding race against something sinister, and Clara's fight is showing you what it takes to hold on to hope when the world turns dark. But the darkness wasn't done with Clara yet. As she stumbled out of Maggie's apartment, clutching the note and fighting back tears, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Across the street, half hidden in the fog, was a car she recognized, Tom's beat-up pickup truck, parked at an odd angle, its engine still running. She approached cautiously, her breath shallow, but the driver's seat was empty. On the passenger seat, though, was something that stopped her dead, another photograph, this one showing Maggie, taken just hours earlier, standing outside her coffee shop, unaware she was being watched. Scrawled across it in red ink were two words, "Time's up." Clara's knees buckled as the reality hit her. She wasn't just in danger, she was the target of something far bigger, far crueler than she'd imagined. Who was doing this? Was Tom involved, or was his truck a setup? Where was Maggie, and what did the journal's secrets have to do with her disappearance? You're reeling just like Clara, your mind racing with questions that have no answers, your heart pounding with the need to know what's next. Don't you dare look away now, because Clara's about to make a choice that will change everything, and the truth behind this chilling mystery is closer and more terrifying than she ever expected. You're still here, gripping the edge of your seat, aren't you? I can feel your pulse racing as Clara stands frozen in the fog, staring at that chilling photograph of Maggie in Tom's truck, the words "Time's up" scrawled in red ink burning into her soul. Maggie's gone, the threat is real, and Clara's world is unraveling faster than she can keep up. You're right there with her, your mind spinning with questions. Who's behind this? Is Tom a traitor, or is he a pawn? What does Jacob's journal have to do with Maggie's disappearance? And how is Clara supposed to stay happy, let alone survive, when danger is closing in from every angle? I'm talking straight to you, because this journey isn't just Clara's, it's ours, and we're chasing the secret to unshakable happiness through a maze of fear and betrayal. But hold on tight, because everything you thought you knew about this story is about to be turned upside down. A major plot twist is coming, one that's going to make you question every clue, every motive, every moment we've uncovered so far. This isn't just a new layer to the mystery, it's a bombshell that redefines the entire game, and you're not going to see it coming. Don't even think about clicking away, because what's about to unfold will leave you stunned, desperate to know how Clara pulls through and what this means for the truth we're all chasing. Clara's hands shook as she clutched the photograph, the fog swirling around her like a living thing, muffling the hum of Tom's still-running truck. Her mind was a whirlwind of panic and guilt. Maggie was missing, and the note made it clear that Clara's search for answers had put her in the crosshairs. She wanted to run, to scream, to find Maggie and make this nightmare stop, but her feet felt glued to the ground. That's when she heard it, a soft crunch of gravel behind her. She spun around, heart in her throat, expecting to see the hooded figure from the fog, but instead, it was Elise, the mysterious newcomer who'd kept her distance since arriving in town. Elise's face was pale, her eyes wide with something that looked like fear, or was it guilt? Before Clara could speak, Elise grabbed her arm, her voice low and urgent. "You need to come with me, now. It's not safe here." Clara's instincts screamed to pull away. After all, Elise had been nothing but a shadow in this mystery, always on the edges, always watching. But there was something in her voice, a tremor that felt real, and Clara, desperate for any lifeline, followed her. They hurried through the fog to Elise's run-down house on the edge of town, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions. You're probably as wary as Clara was, wondering why Elise, of all people, was stepping in now. Was she an ally, or was this a trap? Your gut's telling you something's off, and you're right, because what Elise was about to reveal would shatter everything Clara, and you, thought you understood about this mystery. Inside Elise's dimly lit living room, cluttered with books and half-packed boxes, Clara stood clutching the photograph, her mind racing. Elise locked the door behind them, her movements quick and deliberate, before turning to Clara with a look that made her blood run cold. You've been looking for answers about 10 years ago, Elise said, her voice steady now, but you've been asking the wrong questions. This isn't about Jacob's accident, or at least, not the way you think. Clara's breath caught, her thoughts scrambling to make sense of Elise's words. The accident had been the cornerstone of this mystery, tied to Jacob's journal, the scratched-out photograph, and Harper's warning. What could Elise possibly mean? Before Clara could demand answers, Elise pulled a small, locked box from a shelf and opened it with a key she wore around her neck. Inside was a faded letter, its edges worn from years of handling. She handed it to Clara, who unfolded it with trembling fingers. The letter was from Jacob, dated just days before his death, and it wasn't addressed to Clara, Maggie, or anyone in town, it was to Elise. The words were a gut punch. I know what you did, and I can't keep it secret anymore. Meet me by the river. We end this, or I tell everyone. Clara's world tilted as she read it, her heart pounding with a truth she wasn't ready to face. Elise wasn't just a newcomer, she'd known Jacob, been part of whatever happened 10 years ago, and now she was standing here, claiming the accident wasn't an accident at all. You're reeling, aren't you? The mystery you thought was about a tragic crash and a betrayal in Clara's past just cracked wide open, and Elise, the quiet outsider, is at the center of it. Elise's revelation didn't stop there, she was only getting started, and every word tightened the knot in Clara's chest. She explained that she'd come to town not by chance, but because she'd been running from the truth about Jacob's death for a decade. She claimed she wasn't the she in Jacob's journal, the one he accused of lying, but she knew who was, and it was someone Clara trusted, someone who'd been by her side through this entire ordeal. Elise wouldn't say who, only that this person had manipulated events 10 years ago to cover up a secret so explosive it had cost Jacob his life and was now threatening Clara and Maggie. Clara's mind raced, flashing through everyone she'd leaned on, Tom, with his evasions, Maggie, with her fear and secrecy, Daniel, who'd handed her the journal and disappeared. Even Ethan, the charming drifter, felt like a suspect now. Elise's story was a bombshell, but it came with a catch. She admitted she wasn't telling Clara everything, claiming it was too dangerous until she could be sure Clara was safe. You're probably screaming at the screen, just like I was, wanting Elise to spill the whole truth. Was she protecting Clara, or was she playing a deeper game, using half-truths to steer Clara away from the real answers? The letter from Jacob was real, but Elise's sudden decision to come clean felt too convenient, too perfectly timed with Maggie's disappearance and the threat in Tom's truck. Your trust in everyone is crumbling, isn't it? That's what this twist does, it makes you question every clue, every motive, and wonder if the mystery was ever what it seemed. Clara's emotions were a storm as she stood in Elise's house, the letter in her hand, the weight of this new truth pressing down on her. She'd spent weeks chasing answers, believing the accident was the key to understanding the threats, the photographs, the journal. Now, Elise was saying it was all a lie, that Jacob's death was no accident, and that someone close to Clara had orchestrated it to hide a secret that was still tearing lives apart. Fear gnawed at her, but so did anger at being manipulated, at the thought that someone she loved could be behind this. Her thoughts flickered to Maggie, her best friend, now missing, possibly hurt or worse because of Clara's search. Guilt twisted in her gut, but so did a growing paranoia. If Elise was right, then every moment of warmth, every shared laugh with the people in her life, could have been a facade. She thought of Tom's truck, the photograph of Maggie with "Time's Up" scrawled across it, and wondered if he was the one Elise was protecting or accusing. Her mind spun to Daniel, her brother, who'd been so cryptic, and Ethan, whose charm now felt like a weapon. Even Maggie, before she vanished, had been cagey about that threatening note. Clara's heart ached for the days when her town felt like a haven, when happiness was her shield. Now, she was questioning everything, and the realization that she might be surrounded by liars was almost too much to bear. You're feeling that same ache, aren't you? The betrayal of not knowing who to trust, the fear that Clara's fight for answers is leading her straight into a trap. But the twist wasn't done sinking its claws in. As Clara grappled with Elise's revelation, something else caught her eye in the open box, a small, tarnished locket, identical to one Clara had lost 10 years ago, right around the time of Jacob's death. Her breath hitched as she picked it up, memories flooding back. She'd worn that locket every day back then, a gift from her mother, until it vanished without a trace. How did Elise have it? When Clara demanded answers, Elise's face tightened, and she claimed she'd found it near the river years ago, after Jacob's death, but her eyes darted away, betraying her. Clara's paranoia surged. Either Elise was lying, or she was holding back a piece of the puzzle that could change everything. Was the locket a clue to the real she in Jacob's journal? Did it tie Elise to the river meeting Jacob wrote about? And most chillingly, was Elise the one behind Maggie's disappearance, using this moment to throw Clara off the trail? The room felt suffocating, the fog outside pressing against the windows like a living thing. Clara realized she was alone with Elise, in a house at the edge of town, with no one knowing where she was. You're right there with her, your heart pounding, questioning everything, the accident, the journal, the photographs, and now Elise's story. This twist has turned the mystery inside out, and the truth feels further away than ever. Clara's fear was palpable, but so was her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for answers now, she was fighting for Maggie, for herself, for the happiness she'd always believed was possible, even in the darkest moments. Elise's revelation had changed the game, making Clara see the mystery not as a puzzle about a past tragedy, but as a living, breathing threat that had been hiding in plain sight for a decade. The locket, the letter, the journal, they were all screaming that the truth was close, but so was the danger. Clara's mind raced with new questions. If Jacob's death wasn't an accident, who killed him, and why? Was Maggie's disappearance a warning, or was she part of the secret too? And what did the locket mean? Was it a coincidence, or proof that Elise was more involved than she claimed? You're dying to know, just like I am, because this story isn't just about Clara's journey to happiness, it's about survival, about facing a truth so shocking it could break her or make her stronger. The town, the people, the past, they're all part of a web that's tightening around Clara, and you're caught in it too, questioning every step, every face. Don't look away now, because Clara's about to make a move that could unravel everything or lead her straight into the hands of whoever's been watching her all along. You're still locked in, aren't you? I can feel your heart pounding as Clara stands in Elise's shadowy living room, clutching that tarnished locket, her mind reeling from the bombshell that Jacob's death wasn't an accident and that Elise, the elusive newcomer, has been hiding a connection to the mystery all along. That letter from Jacob, the locket, Maggie's disappearance, and the threatening photographs, they're all screaming that Clara's closer to the truth than ever, but the danger is suffocating, wrapping around her like the fog outside. You're right there with her, questioning everything. Is Elise a friend or a foe? Who's the she Jacob wrote about? And how does this all tie to the secret to staying happy in every situation? I'm talking straight to you, because this isn't just Clara's story, it's ours, and we're riding this rollercoaster of fear, betrayal, and hope together. Now, things are about to escalate, forcing Clara to face impossible choices that will test her courage, her heart, and the very resilience that made her the wise woman everyone admired. The stakes are sky high, the tension is unbearable, and every decision she makes pulls us deeper into a mystery that's as emotional as it is unpredictable. Don't even think about looking away, because Clara's about to confront a reality that could break her or forge her into something stronger, and you're not going to believe what happens next. Clara's breath was shallow as she stood in Elise's house, the locket heavy in her hand, its familiar weight dragging her back to memories she'd buried 10 years ago. Elise's revelation, that Jacob's death was no accident, that someone Clara trusted was behind it, had turned her world upside down, but the locket was a personal blow, a reminder of a time when she was younger, more trusting, before the shadows of this mystery took root. Her mind churned with questions. How did Elise have this locket? Was she lying about finding it by the river, or was she hiding a deeper role in Jacob's death? And where was Maggie, her best friend, whose cracked phone and that chilling note, "You're too close. Stop now, or you're next," were proof that Clara's search was costing lives. Fear gnawed at her, but so did guilt, a crushing weight that whispered she'd pushed too hard, put Maggie in danger, maybe even doomed her. Yet, even as panic clawed at her, Clara's heart clung to the spark that had always defined her, the belief that happiness was possible, even in the darkest moments. But now, that belief was being tested like never before, because Elise wasn't done. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper, and delivered an ultimatum that made Clara's blood run cold. "If you keep digging, you'll find the truth, but you'll lose everything. Walk away now, Clara, or Maggie's not the only one who'll disappear." The words hung in the air, a knife's edge between safety and the truth, and Clara realized she was standing at a crossroads, forced to choose between saving herself and saving the people she loved. You're feeling that same gut-wrenching dilemma, aren't you? The kind that makes your chest tighten, knowing there's no easy way out, no choice that doesn't come with a cost. The emotional weight of Elise's words hit Clara like a tidal wave. She thought of Maggie, her laughter, her fierce loyalty, now silenced by whoever was behind this twisted game. She thought of Tom, whose truck held that terrifying photograph, and wondered if the man she'd loved was a stranger, a betrayer, or a victim. Daniel's haunted face flashed in her mind, his cryptic warning about fixing things now sounding like a plea or a threat. Even her own memories felt unreliable, tainted by the locket and the questions it raised about her role in whatever happened 10 years ago. Clara's paranoia was a living thing, whispering that everyone, Tom, Maggie, Daniel, Ethan, Elise, could be lying, manipulating her to protect their own secrets. Her heart ached for the town she'd once called home, where neighbors were family and trust was a given. Now, it was a labyrinth of deceit, and she was alone in the center, forced to decide whether to keep chasing a truth that might destroy her or to walk away and live with the guilt of abandoning Maggie and the answers she deserved. Clara's thoughts spiraled into a raw, aching fear not just of the danger, but of losing the person she'd fought so hard to be. The wise woman, the one who found light in the dark, was slipping, and the thought of giving up that part of herself was almost as terrifying as the threats closing in. You're right there with her, aren't you? Feeling the sting of her fear, the pull of her hope, the unbearable choice between safety and truth. This is what makes Clara's story so real, so human. It's not just about solving a mystery, it's about fighting for who you are when the world tries to tear you apart. But the conflict didn't stop with Elise's ultimatum, it escalated, pulling Clara into a confrontation she couldn't avoid. She couldn't stay in Elise's house, not with the locket burning a hole in her pocket and Elise's half-truths hanging between them. She needed answers, and there was one person whose role in this mystery was too glaring to ignore: Tom. His truck, the photograph, his evasions, they all pointed to him, and Clara's heart broke at the thought of facing him, of looking into the eyes of the man she'd loved and asking if he was a monster. She left Elise's house, the fog still thick, and headed to Tom's workshop, a small shed behind his house where he spent his evenings carving furniture. Her pulse raced as she approached, the memory of that hooded figure in the fog making every shadow feel alive. When she reached the workshop, the door was ajar, and Tom was inside, sanding a table, his face drawn and tired. He looked up, startled, and for a moment, Clara saw the man she'd fallen for, kind, steady, hers. But then she pulled out the photograph of Maggie, the red ink glaring, and watched his expression shift from surprise to something darker, something she couldn't read. "Clara, you shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low, but she cut him off, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "Tell me the truth, Tom. Were you in on this? Did you take Maggie?" Tom's eyes widened, but before he could answer, he grabbed her arm and pulled her inside, shutting the door behind them. "You're not safe," he whispered, his voice urgent. "They're watching us, both of us. You're feeling the same shock Clara did, aren't you?" The realization that Tom might not be the villain or that he's playing a role so deep even Clara can't see it. His words raised more questions than answers. Who was they? Was Tom protecting her, or luring her deeper into a trap? Inside the workshop, the air was thick with sawdust and tension. Clara's heart pounded as she faced Tom, the photograph still in her hand, her mind screaming to trust him and run from him all at once. He let go of her arm, pacing like a caged animal, and started talking, fast, fragmented, as if he'd been holding it in too long. He swore he didn't know where Maggie was, that he'd found the photograph in his truck that morning, left there like a taunt. He admitted he'd been distant, but not because he was cheating or hiding. He'd been getting threats too, anonymous notes warning him to keep Clara in line or face consequences. Tom's voice cracked as he described the fear that had kept him silent, the guilt of not warning her sooner. But then he dropped a bombshell that made Clara's knees buckle. "I saw Daniel by the river last night, Clara. He was with someone I didn't recognize. They were arguing, and I heard your name." Clara's world tilted again. Daniel, her brother, who'd given her Jacob's journal and vanished, was now tied to the river, the same place Jacob had written about, the same place where Clara had felt watched. Was Daniel betraying her, or was he caught in the same web? Tom's story was plausible, but his timing felt off, his fear too convenient. Clara's emotions were a storm: love for Tom, fear of his lies, desperation to find Maggie, and a growing dread that her own brother might be part of the darkness closing in. You're right there with her, torn between belief and doubt, feeling the weight of her impossible choice: trust Tom and risk being played, or walk away and lose a chance at the truth. The confrontation with Tom didn't resolve anything, it only deepened the conflict, leaving Clara more isolated and desperate. She wanted to believe him, to cling to the man who'd once been her anchor, but the photograph, the threats, and now Daniel's mysterious meeting by the river were too much to ignore. She left the workshop with Tom's plea to stay safe echoing in her ears, but safety felt like a fantasy now. Every choice was a gamble: keep digging and risk losing Maggie or herself, or stop and live with the guilt of abandoning the truth. Her thoughts were a tangle of fear and resolve. Her heart heavy with the realization that the happiness she'd always championed was slipping through her fingers. Yet, even in her darkest moment, Clara's strength flickered, a reminder of the wise woman she'd become, the one who believed joy could survive any storm. But the storm was raging now, and as she stepped back into the fog, a new sound stopped her cold: a low, deliberate whistle, coming from the shadows across the street. It wasn't random, it was the tune she and Maggie used to hum as kids, a private signal between friends. Her blood froze as she realized someone was out there, taunting her, using Maggie's memory like a weapon. Who was it? Was Maggie still alive, or was this a cruel trick? You're feeling the same terror Clara did, aren't you? The kind that makes your heart race and your mind scream for answers. Don't look away now, because Clara's about to make a decision that will push her deeper into the heart of this mystery, and the truth, or the trap, is waiting just beyond the fog. You're still right here with me, aren't you? Your heart's racing as Clara stands frozen in the fog, that haunting whistle, the tune she and Maggie shared as kids, cutting through the night like a blade, taunting her with the possibility that Maggie's alive or that someone's twisting her memories into a cruel trap. The weight of Tom's confession, Daniel's mysterious meeting by the river, Elise's bombshell about Jacob's death, and that locket tying Clara to a decade-old secret are all crashing together, pushing her to the edge. You're feeling it too, the suffocating pressure of a mystery that's no longer just about answers, it's about survival. I'm talking straight to you, because we're in this with Clara, chasing the secret to staying happy in every situation through a storm of betrayal and danger. Now, we're hurtling toward the climax, where the true scale of this conspiracy is about to explode into view, revealing a web far bigger, far darker than Clara ever imagined. The stakes are life or death, the betrayals are gut-wrenching, and every moment is charged with urgency that'll keep you glued to the screen. Don't even think about looking away, because what's coming next is going to shake Clara's world and yours to its core, and the truth is closer, and more terrifying, than ever. Clara's breath caught in her throat as the whistle faded, leaving only the oppressive silence of the fog-drenched street. Her mind was a battlefield, fear screaming at her to run, guilt anchoring her to Maggie's fate, and a stubborn spark of hope refusing to let her give up. That tune wasn't a coincidence, it was a message, a dare from whoever was orchestrating this nightmare. She clutched the locket in her pocket, its weight a reminder of the past she couldn't escape, and made a split-second decision: she had to find Daniel. Tom's claim that he'd seen her brother by the river, arguing with a stranger, was the only lead she had left. If Daniel was involved, if he knew what happened to Maggie or what Jacob's journal meant, she needed to hear it from him. No more secrets, no more half-truths. Her heart pounded as she headed toward the river, the same place Jacob had written about, where she'd felt watched, where this mystery seemed to converge. The fog was thicker now, swallowing the streetlights, and every rustle in the shadows made her flinch, the memory of that hooded figure and those footsteps in the fog vivid in her mind. She was alone, exposed, and the weight of her choices pressed down on her. Every step toward the truth was a step toward danger, but turning back meant abandoning Maggie, betraying the resilience that had defined her as the wise woman. "You're right there with her, aren't you?" Feeling the pulse of her fear, the fire of her determination, the ache of not knowing who to trust in a town that's turned into a house of mirrors. As Clara neared the river, its dark waters glinting through the mist, she spotted a figure standing on the bank. Daniel, his silhouette unmistakable even in the haze. Relief flooded her, but it was short-lived. He wasn't alone. Another figure stood beside him, too far to identify, their voices low but heated. Clara crept closer, her heart hammering, straining to hear. Daniel's words carried on the wind. "You promised this would end with Jacob. You said Clara would never find out." The other figure, a man, snapped back, "She's too close now. You should have stopped her when you had the chance." Clara's blood ran cold, her brother's voice, her own brother, tying him to Jacob's death and the conspiracy threatening her life. Before she could process the betrayal, the second figure turned, and Clara's world shattered. It was Ethan, the charming drifter who'd won her trust, who'd seemed like an ally in this chaos. Ethan, who knew too much about her past, who'd been there at every turn, always watching. The truth hit like a freight train. Daniel and Ethan weren't just involved, they were working together, part of a secret that stretched back 10 years and was now spiraling out of control. You're reeling, just like Clara, your trust in Ethan crumbling, your heart breaking for Clara as she realizes her brother, her blood, has been lying to her all along. This isn't just a personal betrayal, it's proof that the conspiracy is massive, reaching beyond Clara, Maggie, and Jacob, into the very heart of the town she thought she knew. Clara's emotions were a storm as she crouched in the shadows, listening to Daniel and Ethan argue. Fear clawed at her, but so did rage at Daniel for hiding the truth, at Ethan for playing her, at herself for not seeing it sooner. Her mind flashed through every moment with her brother, his cryptic warnings, the journal he'd thrust into her hands, his disappearance after Maggie vanished. Had he given her the journal to help her, or to control what she found? And Ethan, his easy smile, his timely arrivals, had it all been a performance to keep her close, to steer her away from the truth? The scale of the conspiracy was dawning on her, and it was staggering. This wasn't just about Jacob's death or Maggie's disappearance, it was a cover-up that had infected the town for a decade, involving people she'd trusted with her life. Her thoughts raced to Old Man Harper's warning, the threatening notes, the photographs, and Elise's claim that someone close to her was behind it all. Was Elise part of this too, or was she another victim? And Tom, his fear, his claim of being threatened, was he lying, or was he caught in the same web? Clara's heart ached for the days when happiness was her shield, when she could smile through any storm. Now, that happiness felt like a distant memory, drowned out by the realization that the people she loved were either betrayers or pawns in a game she didn't understand. "You're feeling that same ache, aren't you? The betrayal of a brother, the sting of a friend's lies, the fear that Clara's fight for the truth might cost her everything." The confrontation couldn't wait. Clara's resolve hardened, and she stepped out of the shadows, her voice trembling but fierce. "Daniel, what have you done?" Both men froze, their faces a mix of shock and guilt. Daniel's eyes widened, his mouth opening to speak, but Ethan was faster, stepping forward with that same disarming smile that now made Clara's skin crawl. "Clara, you don't understand what's at stake," he said, his voice smooth but edged with menace. "This is bigger than you, bigger than Maggie. Walk away, and we can keep you safe." Daniel reached for her, his face crumpling with desperation. "Clara, I was trying to protect you. You weren't supposed to get this close." But their words only fueled her anger, her hurt. She demanded answers about Jacob, Maggie, the journal, the locket, but Ethan's smile vanished, replaced by a coldness that sent a chill down her spine. "You want the truth," he said. "Then come with us. But I warn you, once you know, there's no going back." It was another impossible choice, a gauntlet thrown at her feet: follow them and risk everything, or walk away and leave Maggie to her fate. The river roared beside them, a reminder of the secrets it held, and Clara's mind screamed with questions. Was Maggie still alive? Was this a trap to silence her? And what was the truth Ethan claimed was bigger than her? You're right there with her, your pulse racing, feeling the weight of her decision, the danger pulsing in the air. Before Clara could respond, the situation escalated further, the conspiracy's true scale snapping into focus. Headlights cut through the fog, and a car screeched to a stop nearby. Clara's heart leapt, hoping for rescue, but her hope shattered when she saw who stepped out: Old Man Harper, the town historian who'd warned her to stop digging, flanked by two men she didn't recognize, their faces hard and unyielding. Harper's eyes locked on Clara, and his voice was ice. You should have listened, Clara. This didn't have to go this far. Daniel flinched, and Ethan's jaw tightened, revealing a tension Clara hadn't seen before. It hit her like a thunderbolt. Harper wasn't just a bystander, he was part of it, maybe even the architect of the conspiracy that had taken Jacob's life and now threatened hers. The men with him moved closer, their presence a silent threat, and Clara realized the town she'd loved wasn't just hiding secrets, it was built on them. Harper, Daniel, Ethan, maybe others, they were all threads in a web that had been spinning for 10 years, protecting a truth so explosive it was worth killing for. Her thoughts raced to Maggie, to the locket, to the photographs, and a chilling question gripped her. How many people in this town were involved? Was anyone who they seemed? Her heart pounded with fear, but also with the stubborn resolve that had made her the wise woman, the belief that happiness, even now, was worth fighting for. You're feeling that same fire, aren't you? The urgency, the betrayal, the need to see Clara push through this nightmare. The standoff by the river was a powder keg, every second ticking like a bomb. Clara's eyes darted between Daniel's guilt-ridden face, Ethan's calculated calm, and Harper's steely resolve, the two strangers looming like executioners. She was surrounded, out of options, and the choice Ethan had given her, follow them or lose everything, felt like a noose tightening around her neck. Her emotions were raw, a tangle of love for her brother, grief for Maggie, and a burning need to uncover the truth that had cost so much. The conspiracy was bigger than she'd ever imagined, a machine of lies and power that had swallowed Jacob, Maggie, and now her, with roots deep in the town's history. Yet, even as fear threatened to overwhelm her, Clara's mind clung to the spark that had guided her through every storm, the belief that happiness wasn't just a feeling, but a choice, a strength she could wield even now. But the danger was real, and the clock was ticking. Harper took a step forward, his voice low and final. Make your choice, Clara. Come quietly, or we make this end another way. You're right there with her, your heart in your throat, feeling the pressure, the betrayal, the unbearable weight of a truth that's within reach but could cost her everything. Don't look away now, because Clara's next move is going to change the game, and the climax of this mystery is about to explode with a force that'll leave you speechless. Lightning split the sky as the storm crashed over Ravenwood Estate, the once grand manor now silhouetted in jagged flashes of white and blue. The wind howled through broken windows, tearing at the curtains like desperate hands. Inside, Eli Mercer stood at the top of the spiral staircase, soaked to the bone, his breath heavy with fear and fury. He clutched the blood-stained ledger, the final piece of evidence, the one that tied everything together, the missing children, the forged adoption records, and the secret society known only as the 13th Veil. Every clue, every death, every sleepless night had led to this moment. Across the marble foyer below, Dr. Adrian Vale emerged from the shadows, his face calm, his white coat flecked with blood. The man the town had trusted, the charming psychiatrist with the humanitarian smile, now revealed as the architect of a decades-long nightmare. You weren't supposed to find it, Vale said, his voice eerily even over the storm's roar. But maybe you always needed to. Trauma is the gateway, Eli. You of all people should know that. Across the marble foyer below, Dr. Adrian Vale emerged from the shadows, his face calm, his white coat flecked with blood. The man the town had trusted, the charming psychiatrist with the humanitarian smile, now revealed as the architect of a decades-long nightmare. You weren't supposed to find it, Vale said, his voice eerily even over the storm's roar. But maybe you always needed to. Trauma is the gateway, Eli. You of all people should know that. As the storm intensified, Eli descended the staircase, rage tightening in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. You used me. You used all of us. Those kids, what did you do to them? Vale smiled, slow and terrible. I didn't do anything they didn't ask for. They were chosen. Just like you. A trapdoor in the foyer groaned open by itself, almost as if the house itself were reacting. From the blackness below, the low hum of chanting drifted up, guttural and ancient. Eli's spine went cold. He had thought the veil was disbanded, scattered. But they were here. They had never left. They had been watching. "This is bigger than you," Vale said, stepping toward him. "It always was. Ravenwood is a gate. And tonight, you decide whether it opens, or stays shut." Suddenly, the lights flickered, and Eli's vision blurred. He staggered. The storm outside had changed pitch. It wasn't wind anymore. It was voices. A chorus of whispers pressed against the windows. The ledger in his hand began to burn hot, the names inside shifting, morphing. His own name appeared over and over, scrawled in a child's handwriting. The truth hit him like a truck. He hadn't escaped the experiment as a child. He had been part of it all along. Vale raised a gloved hand. "You've already opened it, Eli." The ritual needed realization, not resistance. The floor beneath them cracked. A pillar of black smoke burst through the trapdoor, spiraling upward like a living thing. It shrieked in 1,000 voices. Eli fought against it, forced his feet forward, even as his ears bled from the sound. He hurled the ledger into the vortex. "You don't get to rewrite my past," he screamed. "You don't get to win." The smoke recoiled, screeching, as the book disintegrated midair, its ashes swirling into the maw of the darkness. Vale staggered, his face no longer composed. "No. You don't understand. I need you to remember." And then, the twist. Eli did remember. Not just his role, but Vale's origin. Adrian Vale hadn't been the mastermind. He had been another child subject, twisted and broken into believing the Vale's lies. A puppet who thought he was the puppeteer. The true villain had never been seen, only heard, only felt. And that voice now echoed in Eli's mind, softer, more familiar than he could bear, his mother's voice. She hadn't died in the fire. She had become the Vale. The ground gave out beneath them as the smoke consumed the manor. But Eli, eyes wide with both terror and clarity, whispered one final word, "Mom?" And everything went black. Morning broke over Ravenwood, but the estate was gone, reduced to blackened rubble and ash, as if it had never stood at all. The fire had left no survivors, or so the official reports claimed. No one in the town spoke of the night the sky turned red, and the local authorities, eager to avoid scandal, sealed off the land, calling it an accidental gas explosion. But beneath the layers of silence, whispers traveled like roots. Online forums, late-night conspiracy videos, and trending true crime mystery channels began dissecting what little evidence was left behind. A scorched journal page, an archived psychiatric file, a blurry photo of Eli Mercer taken hours before the fire, standing in front of the manor, his eyes hollow but resolved. He had vanished, leaving behind a story no one could explain but everyone wanted to believe. Weeks later, somewhere along the misty coastline of Maine, an old lighthouse flickered back to life after years of abandonment. Inside, the walls were covered in newspaper clippings, maps, coded symbols, and something that looked eerily like ritual diagrams. Eli stood by the window, older somehow, as if surviving Ravenwood had aged him in ways time couldn't measure. He had seen the truth, not just about the 13th veil, but about the layers beneath reality itself. The rituals, the children, the voices in the wind. It wasn't madness. It was a system. A design that had been operating in the shadows for generations, carefully hidden behind haunted house stories, urban legends, and cold case files that never saw justice. His mother had been its vessel, but not its creator. Something older had chosen her. And now it had chosen him. But this time, Eli wasn't running. He wasn't a broken boy anymore searching for answers. He was the only one left who had them. He'd burned the veil's sacred text, shattered the gate, but something still moved beneath the surface, clawing toward resurrection. He could feel it in his dreams, hear it in the static between radio stations. A psychological thriller turned supernatural revelation, and it wasn't over. Not really. Every time someone told a ghost story, every time a child disappeared without explanation, the veil whispered. It tested the cracks. It waited. As he turned from the window, a knock echoed through the lighthouse door. One knock. Then two. Then silence. Eli froze. It was the pattern his mother used when putting him to bed, the one he hadn't heard since she vanished. He opened the door slowly. No one was there. But at his feet sat a box wrapped in damp paper, pulsing faintly with warmth. Inside was a photograph, a group of children from the 1983 foster home, smiling, alive. But in the back, behind them, stood a woman in a red coat. The same coat his mother wore the night she died. And scribbled on the back, in trembling handwriting, was one sentence that made his breath stop cold: "We are not done yet." And in that moment, Eli realized the final horror. The veil hadn't been destroyed. It had simply changed shape. Hidden again. Watching. Waiting for the next crack to widen.